What's going on, guys? Kaiger here. A while ago I made a stats explained video, and it sounds like from all the comments on the video that a few things I didn't explain too well, and now attacking the dummy, checking some numbers, checking it against the damage calc and the crit calculator, things like this, I have a more concrete idea of how damage works in this game. Let's talk about the numbers. Let's get into it.
I don't mind dragging those who break their promises into the deep sea.
Alright, so there's 3 pages for your stats. On the first page, you have HP, attack, and defense. These are all very straightforward. Even though the mage is a spellcaster class, they use attack as well. There's no physical or magical in this game. So how it generally boils down, minus buffs, defense, pierce, things like this. It's basically attack minus defense equals damage, which will then go off of HP, which is straight on. And if you crit minus crit damage, it's 1.5% times damage, so 50% more. And all damage values plus or minuses are done after the attack minus defense is applied. Now, going on to the second page, we have these first 4 stats right here: crit, tenacity, block, and break, are kind of annoying because they're flat numbers and they equate to a percent. And as you get to higher numbers, there's diminishing returns, so you get less per 100, less percent per 100 stat the higher you go, and it's not clear how those numbers go, but there is a crit calculator that knows it to an extent, but let's get into it. These are basically chances, my crit minus your tenacity, and that's effectively these numbers aren't flat numbers, they are percentages, but they're shown to us as flat numbers, and crit is stopped by tenacity. So it's not if you have more tenacity than my crit, I can't crit you. It's I have less chance to crit you. Just like if I have more crit than your tenacity, I'm not automatically going to crit you, but I am going to be more likely to crit you. Same with block, which is, it's weird because like crit is the offensive number, which is me attacking you as a critical hit, and tenacity is the defensive number. And this is the defense version of that, where block is you are blocking and they are trying to counter you with break, which works similarly to crit and tenacity. Looking at how the formulas kind of work, it's not the same values. You get more crit per 100 than you get block per 100, but crit and block are both equally found in the game, as far as fairy level ups, as far as stats on your weapons. Most ways that you can get crit, you can also get block. Then we get into the kind of weird ones with pierce downwards. So talking about these, pierce rate is the offensive stat and protection is the defensive stat. Pierce is how much defense, remember attack minus defense equals damage. Pierce rate is how much of that defense you get to ignore. And protection rate is how much of that pierce rate you get to ignore. And you get to percentages of percentages, which can be kind of wonky. Now, at smaller numbers, it can be a little confusing, but at bigger numbers, it's more straightforward. For example, if I have 100% protection and you have 50% pierce, you would pierce 50% of my defense, but I will protect against 100% of that pierce. So they're going up against different numbers. Your pierce is going up against my defense, but my protection rate is stonewalling your pierce rate. Now, damage increase and damage reduction sounds super straightforward, but it happens after attack minus defense is incurred. So you do the general attack minus defense, then you do all your bonuses, and then you do all your minuses. So if I have damage plus 50%, then it's 1.5 times, and then you reduce it by whatever your damage reduction is. And it is kind of straightforward, but how the math works can be a little confusing. Then we have HP steal rate. This is one that generally is the question for most people on this. And HP steal rate is exactly what it sounds like, but people will get kind of confused. Because when you look at the vampire thing and you see that you're healing based off of it, it sounds like that it's going to be life leech, like you are healing a percentage of the damage dealt, which you are, but the percentage that you're healing is fixed, and this rate, the rate at which you steal HP, is this number. So whatever your HP steal rate is the chance that you will trigger the HP steal, which is 12% for AoE attacks or 40% for single target attacks. Now, ignore block is kind of a weird stat. Nothing else really has that kind of interaction, besides maybe you could look at it the same way as pierce rate and protection, where they go after different stats. But ignore block. So we have break versus block up here, and break is my chance to go through your block effect. Block is the offensive, break is the defensive. So you trigger, and ignore block down here is if you do trigger block, it's how much of that block that I ignore. Block is a standardized number. I believe it's 60%. Quote, let me know down below if I'm wrong. Reduces incoming damage by 60%. If you do in fact block, and then ignore block is how much of that you ignore. If you do have 100% ignore block, you can ignore break, because if you have 100% ignore block, if they block every attack, you're ignoring 100% of that. Crit damage is exactly that. As I said, you have a base 150, and this is cherry on top. Everything right here, damage to boss, damage from boss, damage to fire, damage to water, blah, blah, blah. All damage to adventures, damage from adventures. This is all the same as damage increase and damage reduction, as we explained before. Remember, that happens after attack minus defense calculation. Then we have these 4 stats down here: debuff mastery, debuff resistance, 1 heart, and break free. I have not dabbled enough in these game modes to quote you how these interact, as I have not experienced them myself. Let me know down below if this helped you, if you think I missed anything. Until next time, guys.